Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jurecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jurecki, and today we're talking about time management for parents who do home education, particularly unschoolers. Time management is hard for everyone. I don't even know if I like that name, but that's what I'm going with. We're always trying to achieve some kind of balance in our life, and I think that's very important to have priorities and have balance within those priorities. But it's difficult, so we're going to break down some tips, some things that I do, some examples that we've done, and hopefully it helps you. So with that, let's dive in. Today we're talking about time management, and I don't know if I want to use the word time management, but I'm just going to go with it because I don't have a better word. But time management for busy parents who decide to do home education, specifically unschooling. Time's our most precious resource, and as unschooling parents, we juggle a lot. That means work, home stuff, supporting our kids' learning, our own personal goals that aren't included in any of that. I know it can feel like we're always behind, but I think if we take control of our time, we can get what we desire without sacrificing what matters most. So today we're going to explore strategies to manage time effectively and build sustainable routines while we prioritize what truly matters in the unschooling journey. So first, let's talk about the unique demands of unschooling. So unschooling is a dynamic approach where learning happens anywhere, anytime. We understand that it's not bound by traditional school hours, so we have to have flexibility. This flexibility is amazing, but it also requires a pretty big intentional effort to ensure that our children's educational needs and our family needs are met. So understand, one, there's no perfect way to unschool, and that should be both liberating but also challenging. So I suggest we start with the mindset that we're working on progress and not perfection. That's our goal. In addition, one of the reasons I choose to unschool is because it's, to me, the most efficient way to actually do home education. That's one of the reasons we do unschooling. First, we make the world a classroom 24/7. All the time we spend with our kids, we're always learning. And we can do this on the go. In fact, I think it's best to kind of keep it flexible and just do education as it pops up. I also think we have to sit down and be intentional about our goals with our children's education, because I believe in something called intentional unschooling. I have an episode on that if you want to go back and listen to it, where we talk about intentional unschooling as, I'll just define it out, intentional unschooling as taking responsibility for your children's education, but not forcing them to do a curriculum or anything like that. We're going to provide resources, exposure, and guidance on next steps so that way our children can thrive. And then, we let them choose what that is. And I think that intentional time is very beneficial. For example, my family, we do maybe 40 minutes of math some days. Sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes we don't do anything at all as far as that's concerned. Sometimes we watch stuff about history, or we learn about history, we talk about it. Usually Most of our education, though, is done in between life, meaning we just take the questions as they come. We see something and we ask them if they understand that. And usually it garners some interest and we just go into it. So I find this to be the most efficient way to do education. And I think it gives them, the world creates the curriculum. I think that's very practical. And that's one strategy for time management, is actually doing unschooling. I also think that children learn faster when they're interested. They retain it better. And again, when we're talking about time management, this is a great strategy as far as that's concerned. There is a lot of baggage that goes along with it, like fear, judgment from others. Those are the big ones. So take it for what it's worth. Moving on, I want to talk about priorities. So what I would suggest is clarifying your family's priorities to be able to to ensure that what is a priority is what gets time. So time management begins with knowing what matters most. So what do I do? Well, one, I break my life down into smaller chunks that I give a name. Examples of this might be husband. That would be a category. Another one would be health. So I also have one that is my children's education. Fatherhood is another one. I make it separate. When we break it down into these chunks and we define out specifically the result we're after, and then you put the reason why, and you have to write this down. That's why I do this. I write it down. The result I'm after, as if I've already achieved it. I have a fantastic relationship with my children. The reason why, I say because I want a relationship with them as they grow, and I get to watch them as they grow. And I'm just kind of making this up on the fly. I'm not reading from my stuff here. When you put the result you're after as if it's already happened, and the reason why, I think that signals to your brain it being a priority, and you actually can then start to visualize it. And that's an important part, is actually seeing that happen. And then what you do is you start to do things that support that. So I start to come up with different ways to support that. Support whatever result that I'm after. And if you want to hear more about that stuff, Tony Robbins has a lot of good stuff on that, and there's others who talk about this stuff, but Tony Robbins' stuff is pretty good on that. So then what you do is you start to, once you understand your priorities, you start to plan out your time. And eventually it gets so micro that you're plugging that time into the calendar based on your priorities. And what you're going to do is fit the sand around the big rocks, if you've ever heard that example. So we put our big priorities in first in our week, and then we build the rest of life around it, is what I'm saying. I get down to planning my week out, and that's, I don't always do it, but when I do, I find that I'm able to achieve quite a bit in the ways that I want to achieve, but based on my priorities, what I've decided is a high priority, I achieve those things on a much more regular basis than if I don't plan. Otherwise, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, and whatever begs for your time will get it. And your priorities that can wait probably will, especially when you start to feel rushed or busy. So making sure that you have a plan, and making sure that you know your priorities, and then making sure you have a plan and actually doing that or spending the time on whatever you've decided in your plan and it's plugged into your week, I think is very important. And if something doesn't align with that, it can probably wait. And there's a lot more. I could do an entire series on what to do with that. But at a high level, that's really what it is. Next, I want to talk about build a family-centered routine. Routines are a secret. You know, these habits of something positive in your life that take low energy to actually do, because when it becomes a habit, it lowers the energy required to actually do that. Whereas if you don't have a habit of something, it's hard. For example, if you aren't in the habit of working out, it's really hard to start. The first couple of weeks are really rough. But if you're in the habit of doing it at a certain time, it really doesn't require as much energy. It's still difficult, but it doesn't require as much activation energy to do it. So one of the things I like to do is I'll create a schedule of how I do things. And this can be prompted by things that I do otherwise. For example, maybe meals, or just waking up in the morning, or before I go to work, or before bedtime stuff. I have a routine that I follow, and as long as I just kind of go through my routine, I'm achieving whatever I wanted to achieve based on my priorities. Another thing you can do is blend unschooling activities with whatever family needs you have. Maybe I should elaborate on this. I'll give an example, actually. Use a breakfast discussion to dive into interesting topics, or it could be dinner. It doesn't matter. Or you could go through with your spouse to plan different things throughout the week while you're eating. Or you could try and integrate maybe some life skills into the conversation during dinner. You're teaching them how to interact with others and have fun and build relationship. You're going to have these routines that are focused on your family and what you've decided is important. And I think this should be a simple thing. Too many planned activities can lead to burnout for everyone, so I wouldn't overplan, because that's a mistake. You got to have a lot of flexibility. And again, unschooling allows for that flexibility. But getting this double tasked time where you could do education and eat, and just attach it to that routine, or it's something you do before or after dinner. I use dinner a lot as an example, but because that's kind of a big one for us. But anchoring these routines or habits around your day, I think, is very beneficial. And then you can spend that energy that you would normally require having to try and plan that out throughout your day. If I can find time, it's already kind of just automated. And I think that helps me out a lot. Next, breaking down the day into manageable chunks helps too. So I used to, and I still do, don't get me wrong, you kind of have to sometimes, especially if you're doing entrepreneurial stuff. I try and break my day down into segments as opposed to just scheduling by the minute. This 4-hour block is work time. This 2-hour block is learning time. This 2 hours is just taking care of things around the house. This time is for relaxation and building relationships, just having fun, right? These are less descriptive into what exactly you're going to do. Really what I like to do is when I break down these chunks is I'll just block out time. Now I'm going to work on the business. And then within that, I go over and look at the top 20% of things I can do that would likely move me forward into the result that I'm after. So if I focus on those most important tasks during that time, I make a lot of headway. Hopefully that makes sense to you. We can also do this with our children, right? We just designate maybe some quiet time throughout the day where they can read a book or work on something that is quiet. Maybe they want to take a nap. Maybe they want to just play around and explore something. Like, magic tricks with cards is one of the things that my kids like. This quiet time encourages, or this chunk of time that I use, I call it quiet time, encourages them to get involved with things that they might not otherwise do because they just are kind of playing around and doing whatever, which is fine. But we also want to dive into some other stuff. I'll move on from there. I got more stuff on there, but I think I'm going to run behind if I don't move on. Got a lot to discuss today. Moving on, let's leveraging independent learning. And I kind of went into this with the last topic, but that time that you designate, or it can be outside of that too, but encourage your kids to take ownership of their learning. So you can kind of create a learning menu with activities they can do independently based on their interests and give it to them. This could be puzzles, craft kits, online resources, apps, stuff like that to let them engage while you focus on other tasks. So we don't need to be doing the learning. That's one of the fun things with unschooling is we don't need to actually do all the learning. We can outsource things. I have a goal of having my kids learn how to teach themselves. Well, giving them access to resources and let them manage their own time is that essential life skill. So this fosters that independence and achieves that goal while freeing up my time as well. Now, I don't exclusively rely on that again, but this is a little bit of a hack that you can do to free up your time. So maybe you want to go over and do some household chore or do a little bit of running around, depending on how old your kids are. You can do that if they know how to teach themselves. In fact, part of the goal is get them to learn how to teach themselves as early as possible, so that way you aren't holding up them from learning. Next, I want to discuss streamlining decisions to reduce your mental load. I get decision fatigue very easily. It is a very real thing for me. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm the kind of guy who literally wears the same style of t-shirt, the same color. It's just a black t-shirt or a gray t-shirt every day because I get too overwhelmed by these little decisions that don't impact anything. So I pick a nondescript t-shirt that I just bought 7 of them, seven shirts of, and I just wear that pretty much every day, and no one even notices, which is really funny to me. I tell my friends who I've known for years, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you do always wear like that same type of t-shirt." No one notices. No one even cares. I just make sure it's something that I like, and I can wear it every day, and I can put something over top of it if I want to do something one day, but I never put that pressure on myself to daily show up and have to figure it out. I do this with other stuff. For example, I don't handle the meals. My wife does primarily, but you can do that with meal prep. You can do that with some daily tasks. Maybe that whole routine thing that I was talking about, that helps me reduce mental load because I don't have to figure out where I'm going to work out, where I'm going to do meditation, prayer, read, stuff like that. Fewer decisions free up that mental space for other things that are important in your life, including your kids' education. And I think it allows me to be a little bit more present because that requires energy on my end in things that actually matter. So moving on, another thing you can do to manage your time effectively is include the kids in the household management. So chores aren't just responsibilities, they're learning opportunities. That's how we view it. We use age-appropriate tasks and explain why they're important. This not only builds life skills, but it lightens your load. We have my 2 older kids, the 10 and the 9-year-old boys, do a lot of things for their younger sister who's 6. This teaches them responsibility. It teaches them how to help out, how to care for someone else who needs help. And it also lightens your load, which is very important. And the reason, we do this not only for responsibility, but I found out that this is kind of how it worked. I always wondered how someone could have 12 kids and they turn out fine. And this was done for quite a long time back throughout our past. We're talking about going back decades. And it's kind of this forgotten way to parent that we like to utilize. Not with everything. We definitely see a parent's role in many things, but there are certain things that are done every day, like helping your sister get food, taking the dog out. And also I have my 6-year-old feed the dog. So she's caring for someone and learning how to do that and having that responsibility. But these types of things can really lighten up your load, and really everyone in the household should be contributing in some form, age appropriate, of course. So, it's all of our responsibility to make this household move forward in a productive way, if that makes sense. Obviously, the parents have more responsibility than anyone else, but we're also teaching responsibility, which I think it's a very important thing. Moving on, tap into your support network. You don't have to do it all alone. Lean on other people. This could be extended family, friends, your spouse, whoever is interested in getting involved. You could even consider joining an unschooling co-op. Sometimes these co-ops can provide resources, give you new ideas. Sometimes they'll even do some of the education for you, depending on what kind of group it is. And that even reduces the time you might want to spend, or the time you have to spend on those activities. So I suggest you don't hesitate to ask for help. I think it takes a village to raise a curious, independent learner, and they need exposure to different people. So I think it's a very positive thing, but I would also say that it is not everyone else's responsibility to teach your children. It is yours primarily to guide them through. That is the parent's role, in my opinion. But you should not be the only one in your kid's life. You shouldn't be the only role model. You shouldn't be the only one teaching them anything or giving them education in some form. I think that as they get older, they're going to need more and more people to do that, in addition to you, of course. Moving on. Embrace technology. Can't say it. Embrace technology thoughtfully. Use tools to help streamline and organize your day. This could be something like a family calendar. We use that for sure. A task app or to-do list or whatever you want to call it, reminder apps, or other kind of, or just even a learning platform or another platform just to stay organized. You can do apps that track progress. This could be something like Khan Academy. It could be something like one of the ones we're kicking the tires on is Synthesis for math. It could also even be YouTube channels. We use, I think it's called Safe Vision, which allows your children to go on YouTube, but only see the channels that you approve of. And that's kind of cool. So they can dive into topics they're interested in without constant supervision. We're also intentional about screen time, so we don't always have screens out. So when they are out, they're paid attention to, and we have certain apps that we always allow that are educational, while other apps are a privilege that are only done during certain times. So it doesn't distract the kids away from any time where we want them to be present. We want to build a relationship, have fun together. We try and stay off our phones and computers and all that stuff during those times as well. In particular, when we do like dinners or during the day when we're spending time as a family. Moving on, set boundaries for work and home life. And this is hard. The reason I'm talking about this week is because I just got done doing my first night shift in 15 years. I am absolutely exhausted. I got 2.5 hours sleep today. And, sometimes you do what you have to do. That's the thing. It's like I didn't want to do this. I've avoided it for so long because I have to sleep while my children are out running around, the dog's barking, and I can't even get sleep. So I'm affected. I'm grumpy. I'm irritable. My kids don't get the attention because I'm sleeping for hours while they're at home just running around doing whatever without my supervision. Obviously I'm right there and I can hear someone screaming or crying. But essentially they just go kind of unsupervised until they wake me up. And, it's difficult. I don't really want to do this, but, we do what we have to do. So I've set that boundary where I just don't do night shifts to avoid that problem. But, life pulls at you and you have to do what you have to do. So here I sit on the other end of that, but I want to argue for setting boundaries, setting designated work hours that you communicate to your kids, especially if you work from home, setting designated boundaries to establish what you're willing to do at work and what you're not. You can even, when you're working, I actually got to, I'll give some advice that was given to me. I got to meet Dave Ramsey. I went down to Nashville one time and I happened to pop in his office and got to shake his hand, talk with him for a minute. And I talked with him. I just happened to be in Nashville. And I got the question from a good friend who was starting a business. He was about a year in and he was working 1 million hours a week. And he said, he was struggling with some things as far as time management was concerned. He's like, I don't know any entrepreneurs out there in the entire world. I can't think of one that is successful in family and business at the same time. And I said, what about Dave Ramsey? And he goes, oh yeah, that's one. Wonder what his secret is. I happened to be in Nashville a couple days later, and I was like, hey, let's pop in and see if I can ask him. So I did. And I asked him, what's the secret? Dave Ramsey told me, when you're working, work. When you're spending time with your family, be present and spend time with your family. There will be seasons where it's all work. There will be seasons when it's all about your family. Understanding that, recognizing it, and making sure that neither one's forgotten is the secret sauce, if you will. My words, not his, but I thought that was great advice. So things that I do when I'm working from home is setting my phone to do not disturb, like a focus time. Use noise-canceling headphones to minimize interruptions. I tell my children I will not be available for the next hour. I take breaks. I handle whatever they need, my kids need during those breaks. And I also block out time to spend with them. Like yesterday, before I went to work, I made sure to play the matching game with my 6-year-old daughter. She loves that game. I find it entertaining. I actually beat her for the first time ever, I think. You really need to do the same thing for your children that you do for your work. It's about quality, I think is what I'm saying, not quantity. So also remember, time expands for kids. You could spend 10 minutes with them, and then they're going to tell you, you spend 10 minutes a day with them doing something. They're going to say you spent half the day with them when they get older. I go back and I talk with my parents about when my dad used to take me out to eat at a restaurant. I said it was every week for years that he would take me out to this waffle place, and I'd get this French toast, and we'd talk about sports and whatever else was going on in our lives. I swear that happened every Saturday. Every Saturday. I guess that was just a phase that happened every maybe couple weeks, maybe once a month. But I swear we would spend like 2 hours sitting there every Saturday. So just remember that time expands for kids, and just a little bit of effort goes a really long way. Moving on, protect time for yourself and your spouse. Self-care isn't optional. If you don't recharge yourself, then you're not going to be able to show up when it counts, okay? Build moments in your day for exercise, hobbies, or just simply recharging, whatever that might be. You got to figure out what that is. I have a whole category in my management system of my life to help me manage my priorities for self-care, things that bring me energy. I schedule weekly downtime. It's hard to follow, but I schedule weekly downtime for me to rest, to spend time with my wife, pursue my personal interests, and I think that's very important. And we try and schedule date nights. We've been really bad about that lately. We have it in the calendar, but we never seem to follow it because something always comes up, right? And that's just a part of life, but bringing it back when it goes away is, the goal. And again, progress, not perfection, is the goal. And that actually moves us into our last topic, which is called focus on progress, not perfection. There's going to be days when nothing goes as planned, and that's okay. If I achieve 70% of what I had planned for that week, I call that an absolute, undeniable victory. You're never going to achieve, you're rarely going to achieve what you've actually set out to do. So celebrate those small wins. Even if you didn't hit 70% of what you planned out, celebrate what you did get done. You could have done nothing. Something could have happened and derailed your entire week where you got 0 done. And that happens sometimes. So celebrate those small wins, whether it's engaging in a small learning moment with your kids where they, had a breakthrough understanding of something, or maybe it's a breakthrough in your personal interest, or maybe it's the entrepreneurship, you got your first sale, man, celebrate that. Don't accept that you have to be perfect. That's not true. Remember that life is about the journey. Unschooling is about the journey, and fostering curiosity, connection, not checking boxes, is the goal. So, some actionable tips for you guys out there. Conduct a time audit. For 1 week, sit down and write down how you spend your hours to identify time wasters. I used an app that tracked my time, and I broke down the timers into different categories, like, this is time that I spent on my business. This is time I spent at my W-2 job, my work as a respiratory therapist. This is time I spent with my wife. This is time I spent on self-care, recharging myself. This is time I spent sleeping. You get to decide what those categories are. And I also had time wasters too, which was like scrolling my phone, right? But I had to be intentional and know what I was signing up for, because as I went over and started the timer, I knew I was wasting my time. But I wanted to track it. I wanted to get an idea of how my week actually goes. So I just did what I normally did. And it gave me a lot of insight. And I'm a nerd, so I plugged it into an Excel spreadsheet. I actually did it for me for a month. And I really got an idea of where I spend my time. And then I compared that to my priorities. Boom. Man, that's eye-opening. So it got me a lot more intentional about planning out my week, and then going over and saying, I'm not going to click on the time waster thing, timer. Instead, I'm going to click on this timer. Now what I'm going to do kind of refocused me. Try time blocking. Put stuff into your actual calendar and stick to it. This is time for work, learning, relaxation, date night, whatever it might be. Use a shared family calendar to keep everyone on the same page. This could be Google Calendar. We also have tried Cozy. Some people like that. We just use the Apple calendars and we just share them across everyone's devices for, whatever. So we could keep track of each other's day, particularly with my spouse. We do have some shared with our kids and my parents. That helps out quite a bit, and it reduces the complexity and energy required to get everyone on the same page. Create a weekly rhythm chart, and this helps you focus your family's routine or visualize your family's routine, and you can adjust it as needed. So we actually have it as a calendar by the month, and we try and put it's a magnet calendar for the kids. We try and put stuff in it that's, hey, this is a day where you're going to be watched by Nana and Papa. This is a day where you get to do whatever you want. This, basically a Sabbath day, or we call it a freedom day, where they could just choose to play video games all day. It's like a Saturday when I was a kid. That type of understanding will help your children be able to relax when they're not able to play video games. At least my kids, they do. They know it's coming up. Explore unschooling resources like the Brave Learner or the Unschooling Handbook. It can offer some ideas for simplifying your day and stuff like that. So in conclusion, managing time as an unschooling parent is about aligning your family's priorities with flexible routines that work for everyone. Focus on building rhythms, fostering independence, and making time for yourself as well. And just remember that it's presence, or rather progress, not perfection, that is what truly matters. You're doing a great job just by showing up for your kids. And honestly, I'm probably not worried about people who listen to my podcast, because you guys are probably the top at least 20% of people out there focused on your kids' education and trying to do what's best, and you're outside the box thinkers. And I know you're guiding them with love because you're doing what you think is right. So with that, I'm going to end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. And stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.